you definitely don't want to be the bad guy. Anybody who's passionate in programming always has a very busy GitHub commit history.
Let's go back in the memory lane. What was your experience when you were getting hired?
LinkedIn was very different because I was getting there like 2-3 years after I already worked. So it's not like Pradhan said so. I hate that kind of answer, right? The problem is I've seen engineers just go into this thing of for days together. They just try to figure it out themselves, right? You need to strike a balance.
Experience in the hiring process of Amazon and LinkedIn.
Man, it's okay. If you don't know something, it's okay. I mean, so what? I mean, it's not like focus on your health.
Focus on your health.
Like how anusha does, rather than not.
Firstly, thank you so much for accepting the invite and coming over. Like, what was your thought process when I first sort of came to you with the idea of podcast?
Firstly, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's fun to kind of share experiences. I was excited because not done this before, and then I was like, okay, so let's have some fun. Let's talk about what I've been through, what I've got to share. Hopefully it'll be fun.
Yes, absolutely. Now, if possible, like, can you briefly introduce yourself to the audience? Like, what have you done? What are your experiences? Because I think you would be the best person to tell that instead of me.
So I did my engineering back in 2009. I completed. This was in Mysore. It was a college called NIE. And then I spent like a couple of years doing my master's in computer science in University of Florida. After that, I worked as an engineer in Amazon, AWS specifically. Again, that was in Seattle. And then I moved to San Jose. Then I worked with LinkedIn. So with LinkedIn, I spent like a good amount of 8-9 years there, again in engineering in various teams, roles, organizations. And then around 2023, like a year and a half ago, I relocated back to India, spent a year here at LinkedIn. The move was within LinkedIn, spent here as a lead in one of the teams. Then I decided I wanted to do something on my own, so I quit LinkedIn, and then now I am co-founding a startup. So that's where we are. It's been 3-4 months since we started this fun journey.
Lovely, amazing. Now, since you just told us that, you were like a large share of your life, you were, outside of India and, experimenting there. How is the culture there in comparison to what it is in India in terms of the living standards as well as, the work standards? But let's just first go into the living standards area.
It's obviously it's known that at least the infrastructure is definitely better. No comparison there at all. Simple things like say a public park where you can go play or take your kids to play and stuff, or any of these national parks and stuff. I don't want to go into details of what's good, what's bad, but it's a known truth that definitely the West has better infrastructure than most of the India is catching up definitely, but not there yet. Work culture very different. I think that's probably people tend to only look at, and when I talk to junior engineers here in India, right, like they always tell me about, hey, India, Bangalore, the compensations are in crores already with all the living expenses. Do you still think it's a good thing for me to go to, say, Silicon Valley or California or the US? Financially, does it make sense? No, the cost of living here is low. We have good jobs here. I think to an extent it's evolved, but largely the work culture is still very, very different, in the sense that the autonomy that you get when you work there versus the autonomy where what you get here is very different. So let me give you an example, right? Like here, I think it's more of a trust and but verify kind of culture. That's a good way to put it. I mean, even right at a very early stage of your career, you've given a very abstract problem, and then you are expected to go figure out. I mean, the manager kind of gets out of the way, and then only the engineer is kind of on their own, and they ask for help when they need, right? But over here, what I noticed was it's a very controlled environment, I would say. The trust isn't there. It's especially at junior levels from the leadership, or it's more like you are spoon fed a lot of things, and then the expectation is if you do what I ask you to do, you succeed. On the contrary, I guess the US culture was more like, if you do something without me even telling you and you kind of figure out yourself, that means you're just giving me as in like a tech lead or a manager, more bandwidth to do something else. So you delegate and trust that other person, so that the person who is in a managerial or a leadership role can focus on something else, right? So that's how they kind of look at a growth, and the culture is very much like that. And then they let you fail, right? So again, the risk here is you might ask, like, a junior engineer might do the wrong thing, they might not know anything, that will risk the project, and that risk taking ability is kind of appreciated. And if you fail, you're the one to blame. I mean, if you as an engineer screw up something, then you take the blame, you take the credit, right? I think that's a very, very different kind of culture to what I saw here. Here it was more like the ownership or the blame is always on the manager versus the blame being on the engineer, at least in the larger setup, because the manager is expected to get the best out of the engineer. But in the US, that was not the case. I think that's probably the big takeaway, and that's kind of that you notice that culture all along the hierarchy. For me, I was I guess when I returned around 12, 13 years into the industry, and L6 equivalent, that's the leveling that we usually talk for senior staff and above. Even the autonomy wasn't the same as what you expect. I mean, what I was used to in the US, even at L6 levels. So you can only imagine what it is, at a much earlier stage of the career, right? Now, these are things that I feel are way more important than your compensation, because this shapes you as an individual, one, and then this also kind of gives the best out of you, gets the best of you, right? If you want to put it that way. So people don't look at these, because when you're working here, you don't even realize that there is a different kind of work culture which is better, which is good for me to grow. Because if you're kind of stifled in this box, and you're always being told and given instructions, you cannot just kind of grow as quickly. Because the whole aspect of growing in the career is not about how much you contribute, it's how much of decision making you have learned. And given right from early stage, if you're thrown into the decision making process, you just turn out to be a better individual. I think that's the key difference. Again, my experience has been very much limited to the companies I've worked, and also for people who I have spoken to, and then everybody kind of said, yeah, this is spot on. This is pretty much how it is here. So I think we as leaders in these big companies have a huge responsibility to change these. One of the things I'm doing in my startup as well where I almost never ping somebody explicitly. I expect them to ping me when they're in trouble. So you have a discussion, say once in a week, twice in a week. You give them instructions, and you're expected to. You're adults, right? Like you're expected to come up to me and ask for help when you need. I don't want to tell you exactly what to do. This is the business problem. You go figure out what needs to be done. And if you need help with, say, hey Pradhan, how should I do this? Right? I flip the question. The culture I want to bring in at least in this organization is that when you come to me, come with 3 or 4 options. Do your research on 3 options, 4 options, and then you tell me what is the best choice. Don't ask me what should I do. You tell me what is the best choice, and also give me the rationale for the choice you made. Then we will have an informed discussion, and then we'll make a choice. I think that's a very good way to say, force somebody to do the research, and also that gives you that ownership feeling that, hey, there is somebody to listen to me. It's not like it's one-way direction. I'm being asked to do something, and then when somebody says, why did you make this choice? Anybody else in the office, it's not like Pradhan said so. I hate that kind of answer, right? It should be that this is all we considered, and we arrived at this choice because of this. I think that's a good way to solve this problem. Yeah, I can go on, but any specifics?
Yeah, I have a counter question. Why do you think that this problem exists, or this change of work style is there between India and outside?
The naive answer is, I guess, culturally we have come up with kind of this layers and layers of hierarchy, where you just do what you're told, right? I think even right at school, right? Like I remember, I never asked why should I solve this math problem in a certain way. It's almost like the teacher said so, or I never questioned my mom or my dad to say, hey, why should I, eat curd rice at the end of every meal? I mean, I'm South Indian, so I'm very used to eating curd rice at the end of every meal. I mean, I don't even like that. But I never, there is no culture of asking questions, at least back in the day when I was growing.
Yeah.
Now it's changing, of course. My son asks me everything, and I need to have a legit answer.
Right.
I think that's just in the society where, at least you just do what your superior is telling you. Unlike the US, right from the education, when the schooling and stuff, there is nobody kind of forcing you to do anything, right? Like there's always an aspect of what do you want to eat today? Or what do you want to do? It's how you have grown up. Like, I mean, what do you want to study? Nobody's going to say you've gotten 95% in science and math. We retrofit you into engineering. Nobody's going to do that. I mean, I think it's coming from there, where the root level culture is that I know more than you. You just do what you're what I'm telling you, right? And then there is, for this culture to kind of survive, there is a huge supply of talent here, right? There is also this, as in like there is fear in. I noticed that there is more like fear in engineers to go against that, even or voice their opinion, right? Even if I say, hey, I wanted that, I've never seen any guy like talk to their manager, at least at the place I work, where they say, hey, I'm not comfortable with the style of operations. You give me like, a more abstract, instruction, and then let me be, and then I'll come to you. I've seen very junior engineers kind of come talk to a manager like that in the US, but in India, it's considered, say, a non-polite way, or people take it personally, and they're afraid of losing their job because there are like 10,000 other people willing to kind of,
Isn't that the same in America? Is it more because people over here lack confidence, or they lack the idea that am I knowledgeable enough to make a comment like that.
Yeah, so that's there at every that's there in every country, right? But early on in the stage, that confidence is I wouldn't say that's confidence. It's more around what you've been taught and what others are doing.
Upbringing.
Yeah, so and also like what others are doing, right? Like I mean, you don't want to be the only person
First
doing
calling
things. Yeah,
people out.
you definitely don't want to be the bad guy. And the problem is around the manager making the engineer feel the bad guy, right? It should be like the manager wants to should bring up a more open environment where in a group setting or in a one-on-one, he or she openly promotes this aspect of you need to talk to me if you're not happy with something, and I can assure you it won't have wrong consequences. And I have had my manager like say this, like see, my upbringing is also the same. I was here like till 2010 and stuff, and then I started my career there, right? Yes, I was very, very scared to voice my opinion, but it was my manager who actually made me comfortable for these conversations and said that until you tell me, I don't know, and only when you are happy, you are productive, and that's what is good for the company, right? I think it's more on the other side where you bring in an environment where people are comfortable talking about whether they're liking the job, the task, the way it's on, and to an extent, managers do ask though. But then when you don't do anything about the feedback, the natural tendency of an employee or an engineer is like, screw it. I mean, I've given this feedback so many times, but nothing happens. Nobody listens to me. I'm just cruising along. That's probably 70-80% of the people what I've seen here. So yeah, that's one thing. Solution is for people on the leadership side to promote that culture of have people open out, be comfortable talking about whatever you want.
More candidness.
Yes. I think that's.
But then you also need to sort of maintain a balance of discipline and candidness at the same time. How do you maintain that line? Because I've seen in India what happens, if you sort of just give them a free pass or give them that authority or whatever, sometimes they also get carried away with it a lot.
I think again, it's not a college. Everybody needs to understand it's a professional setting. You need to. I'm not saying candid in the sense, you need to hang out and have tea with your manager. That's not what I'm saying. I think be open and supportive of difficult conversations, right? Give that kind of comfort to say it's okay to talk about things. There will be no bad repercussions in your annual review or in your career growth. I think that's what is needed. I'm not talking about just chill out. There are no rules. There are no you can come in at 3 p.m. You can go out 5 p.m. I don't care if your tasks are not done. No, I mean that is unacceptable because that's not the right thing for the business, right?
Yeah.
So always you have the business in the center, and then you do the right thing for the business in terms of deliverables and all of that. And then the other thing is around whether you're liking the style of working. What can I do to support you and for you to be way more productive? These conversations should be encouraged.
Yeah. Now, since you mentioned business, and now before you worked at many corporate companies, and now you have shifted to a startup. That's a very different culture altogether.
Yeah.
And how was this shift, and what were the key things that you found better in a startup or better in a corporate zone? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's still early days. It's just been 3 months since we started. I guess the biggest difference I see is I'm no longer an engineer, or I no longer just look at everything on the technical side. I just especially when you're in big tech, each person, there are different. There is a product org, there's an engineering org, and there is a constant kind of what do you say, good debate in terms of whether we should do X, whether we should do Y, whatnot, and then things get escalated, and somebody who has more authority or who has a broader vision of the business takes a decision, and then kind of helps us out, right? That doesn't happen here, right? Because it's just my company. This is that. If I feel that there is one way to do something, from an engineering standpoint, and there is another way, I don't even need to consult anybody or at least talk to anyone as to what needs to be done, because I know what's good for the business already. So there is definitely that sense of ownership that you get, and then things just move faster because you wear multiple hats, and then you're capable of making the right decision, and then you're in the middle of like everything. Like you talk to customers, the product, the engineering side. Of course, it doesn't scale that way for a big company, but for a smaller company, things just move way faster in terms of making decisions. So that's definitely a big difference, I see.
Yeah. A lot of like people who are just getting into an industry, they have this question: should we go for a startup or should we go for a corporate? Because everyone has this. So everyone has the idea that okay, it's a startup. It might not be that well organized or well towards because they're still figuring it out, right?
Yeah.
But the corporate, they're too rigid with their ideas. Like they've already laid down a design system. Laid down a system. How about that? Like, how can you pierce through it or enjoy that system?
It's a question more around, should I start my own company as a young kind of engineer, or should I work at a startup?
So
are you comparing the two?
Both actually, but right now it's the latter one. I want to know, if I'm a person who is just getting into the industry, what kind of a person would be more of a fit for a startup, and what kind of person would be more of a fit for a corporate environment?
See, I think if you have kind of vision towards, hey, I want to build something on my own, eventually that's my true north. I see myself as an entrepreneur trying to come up, with something on my own. I'm good at it. I can make it. A startup would be a great option for you, because you learn how things work in a small setup. You learn kind of what are the important things. You get a wider kind of experience towards, like I said, like customer conversations, how things evolve, how what is important, what is not important, the pitfalls of building a startup and stuff. But if that is not your kind of thing, and then you say, okay, so I know for sure I want to grow in my technical ladder to say a software engineer, senior, staff, architect, and I want to do that, then I would suggest a corporate is a better option in that sense, because things are kind of chaotic in a startup. You learn a lot, but that doesn't mean you don't learn a lot in corporate. Like even today, when I try to build something, a lot of things that I've learned over the years at LinkedIn is what I use. The whole aspect of how do you go about thinking a problem, right? Like you think about all the cases, you think about compare all the infra options you have, and what are you optimizing for? Are you optimizing for cost, scalability, features, whatnot, and everything? These are all like it's not taught anywhere, right? Like you just get that culture of how do you go about thinking about a problem is what big tech companies really they're really good at. And then also what will happen when your company scales, right? Like for me right now, I'm used to building things for 100 million, 50 million people. Now in my startup, I don't need to think about scale, but then if I'm able to scale this business to a big one, I really know exactly how to solve that problem. So the scale aspect, the processes, and even in this startup that I'm running, the code review process is very, very kind of rigid, and simple things, right? Like I mean, we let's say we use a CSS framework, and we just want people to use Tailwind or whatever, and we don't want people to accidentally check in vanilla CSS. That's a good example, right? Now there is one way where we can have whoever is reviewing the code to always look at the code review and point out that, hey, you're using this, please change it. But that won't scale, right? Instead, you need to have some sort of commit checks that a script of sorts that checks if it doesn't match the kind of CSS that you're looking for. By the way, CSS is just one example, but any framework that, so automate that, right? Like automate everything and start enforcing processes, then it will become second nature.
Correct.
Rather than me going and policing everybody to say, hey, have you done this? Have you done this? Make sure you build frameworks where people can't even do that. So these are all things that I learned from working from AWS or LinkedIn, where these companies have solved it so well, because at a 5,000, 6,000 employee count, you cannot have somebody police it, right? Let's say the guy left, or that some tech lead who came up with this plan, she went on a 1-month vacation. Who's gonna follow these processes? There has to be, everything has to be built in a way that it functions even without me, right? I think that's how you scale. These are the kind of things that you will learn in a corporate environment. That's very valuable.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, since you have already, been in a position where you thought of starting something of your own. Now, I know there are multiple people out there who are in the same position, right? What gave you that, that motivation? Let's do this. Because I'm sure it might have not been such an easy decision to let go of of a job that's already there and, coming up with something completely new.
Yeah, like I said, I think the true north for me was always to build something on my own. It was just a matter of when. So I think the decision was mostly around, do I have the financial stability? Fortunately, I planned it in certain way that, okay, I have a fair amount of runway to experiment. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very challenging, because you have the pressure of kind of, what if it doesn't work out? Do I need to go back? Do all of that? So definitely suggest to kind of figure out what is that kind of either a passive income or a sum of money that you think that once I get into this journey of building something on my own, I don't have to think back of, at least for a couple of years, right? Like I don't have to think back around how do I run my house?
Correct.
How do I run my setup, right? So once that is out of the way, right, then it just comes to, okay, do I have the right time commitment right now? Is my what? Do I have a lot of commitments in my family right now? Do I have a young child that I need to take care of at home and stuff? If that is there, then you cannot really spend like hours, because this is going to be tough. You always think about this. So those two checked out for me, both of them. And then I went on to the journey of finding a co-founder.
Correct.
So that would be my kind of, at least that was my thought process.
And for anyone who wants to, start something of their own, I know there are tons of things that you need to take care of.
Yeah.
But if you can sort of list a few things down for us that, okay, how to go about it? What's the first few steps that you need to take for something?
Or to start something.
Start something of their own.
Yeah, so first thing is idea, of course. So do some market research. I mean, I just feel idea is 10%, execution is 90%. That's what I've realized, right? Any idea. Let's say I want to build something, another Swiggy. Sure, but then do you have it and you need to execute it and get it right? That's the differentiator. You can brainstorm, you can chit chat about like thousands of ideas. I'm very sure every idea will work. Just that, do you have the right set of resources and people to execute it, right? So figure that out. Somebody, when I am picking this line from somebody I spoke to, and then this was very apt here, right? Like, think about the fact that you've already built that. Let's say whatever idea you have, let's say an Uber or another taxi service. Assume that you already have that, and then tomorrow you have to go sell it. Because that's the time when you actually are putting the most effort. I think for me, selling is the hardest part, especially coming from an engineer. If there's an idea to build it, sure. I mean, it's just whatever happens inside the room is easy. Whatever happens outside is difficult, right? So assume that you've already built it. Now you have the product sitting at hand. How do you go sell it? Right? Do you have an answer or a plan to go sell it? If not, no, you're not ready yet. I think that would be my biggest thing to say. Can I start this? Don't build something that you think, okay, we'll figure out later how to sell it. No, because that's the hardest part. Have a plan to sell it. Know your customers, and then kind of visualize yourself pitching this or selling this to someone. I think that would be my first step towards this.
Amazing. And I think one of the core parts of doing something of your own is also the team with which you are working.
Yeah.
And I think during my podcast also, there was so many, hidden trials, figuring out with who I can work with, who can actually understand the visual I have. And with startups also, this is one thing that starting where people don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
Now, you also need to find people who are equally determined, equally motivated. They don't think that, okay, you're just trying something out of thin air. You are here with an objective. And at the same time, are also talented or skilled in the way you want them to be. So I've also learned from the few interviews that I did that it's not only about it's not that you have to be skilled. It's also you need to fit in the skill set that the company is looking for. So how was that whole process of figuring out a team for yourself?
See, I think what I realized was very early that I need a co-founder, right? Because my background is engineering. To run a business, there are a lot of other aspects. There is product, there is sales, there is market strategy, whatnot, right? All of that. And I mean, those are things that I don't have, right? So either I learn them and kind of fail at it and then eventually succeed, right? Or I go find somebody who has a complementary skill, right? So I figured that the latter is better for me. So first thing I did was signed up for all of this, they call it co-founder dating sites, right? So Start Hawk, Co-founder Hub. I signed up. I don't know if you've used them, but essentially there you put out your idea and you put out, what you're looking for, either a co-founder or you already have an idea or you want to get on board with somebody's idea. What is your skill set? What are you looking for? Essentially that, right? And then you talk to people. And then, if you find somebody that, you're excited about and you feel that, okay, they have the same amount of energy, they have the vision. And, I met my co-founder like probably 5-6 times before finalizing and moving forward. And even moving forward, we said, okay, we're not going to sign any agreement. Let's work together for like 30 days and see that if the working style also matches. And that's when we kind of thought through a bunch of things, right? So I feel that is the most important thing for a few reasons. So one is they complement your skill set. My co-founder is more on the, like I said, sales and market strategy. And then all of the thing, what we have split our responsibilities is everything that happens inside the office is my responsibility. Everything that happens outside the office is his responsibility. And he enjoys that and he loves that and he's good at that. And I enjoy this and I'm good at this, right? So that way my focus is completely on execution and getting things out, while his focus is how do I get funding? How do I sell this to my customer? How do I get feedback? All of that is his. So I would say do that. That will take out a lot of pressure out of you. There are sites nowadays. It doesn't have to be with somebody within your network or somebody who you studied with. You can actually, meet strangers and make it happen. Right. My co-founder, I met him in March. So I didn't even know him before that. So that is first part. And then is the team, what you meant, right? Now, with the team, what we realized is, again, hiring is very, very different from hiring at LinkedIn versus hiring for a startup, right? Nobody knows my company's name. and I mean, there is no brand attached to it. So to attract talent is very difficult. So there is also an aspect of how do I get good talent to join me? Like, why would somebody join me?
Correct.
Right. Obviously, I can't afford a salary that a LinkedIn or a Google pays. That is one. And the only and then we don't have any funding yet. I mean, we are completely bootstrapped by choice, by the way. And without that, what is it? Like, we have to get somebody on board on the idea. We have to sell them the idea first. And all they are coming in is for a learning experience for them, right? Like learning experience based on what my background is, what is it that they can get out of me. I think I would optimize for hiring talent who are here to learn, because the hungry to learn is what I would optimize as optimize for, right? Because those are the people who are their main focus is they're already looking at 4-5 years ahead of what they are today, and then they know that the initial foundation is what helps. Because if you join a big company as an intern, usually what happens is there's not much of hand-holding there, right? Hand-holding in the sense you're probably given something where a small piece of a larger puzzle is what you are solving. Here you're just given the entire puzzle, right? So the amount of learning that you do in a smaller setup, the 3 months is probably equal to 1 year of something in big tech, right? Sure, I mean, over years you learn a lot of different things, but for somebody who's so early, like right out of college, they don't have any experience of, say, coding, and then going into specifics of programming here. If they don't have any experience of programming, a company like, I'm selling, that somebody should join us. Like, this is the pitch that I had for any interview. They would ask me, why should I join you guys? Like, see, here I'm going to probably throw at you a problem that, hey, figure this entire thing out. You need to tell me what database to use, what technology to use, where to deploy, whether to use Azure, whether to use AWS, whether to use GCP. All of that is something that you need to figure out. And I'm here to support you, right? Like, that's the key difference, that the learning experience is much better. So talent is the next part. Then be flexible to keep changing your plans. You might have started with something, an idea that you felt was perfect because you hadn't spoken to anybody, right? Then as you speak to people, you learn that, okay, this isn't the right thing to do.
Yeah.
We need to adapt. So very, very quick at understanding, okay, kill it. Sure, we have spent a week, we have spent 2 weeks, but if we spend 3 more weeks, it's even more wasted money. Kill it. And then eventually you'll get to something that he,
Yeah.
I think that would be my.
Now, since you also mentioned that hiring at these corporate like LinkedIn and all these places is different from hiring at a startup.
Yeah.
Right? Firstly, how? And secondly, what have you, like, what do you look into when you are hiring someone? So I remember in the office once, you were sort of telling us, not me, but someone, how to actually see the portfolios on GitHub. What is something that you should look at when you're, actually picking people to interview?
Yeah.
So,
see, in big companies, there's a very set template of how hiring should be. It's done, and it's there for a reason. It's there because you have thousands of engineers interviewers, and then you have a bunch of interviewees, and you want to keep a standard of bar across the company. You don't want to let people choose their own kind of interviewing style, because at some point what will happen is there is no benchmarking standard set, and then the talent pool inside the company is very varied dependent on who interviewed you. We don't have such a problem because we're literally like under 10 people, right? So I'll tell you what happens at big companies, right? First is most companies have like a set of questions, a large pool of questions, and you're expected to pick a question, or if you have your own question, that's totally fine. But then it has to go through some process to say, okay, this question is kind of good enough to be asked, right? So that happens first. Then there will also be very clear guidelines on if the candidate, it's almost like a workflow, right? If the candidate answers this like this, is good, or she's good. Or if the candidate answers this better, this is great, this is perfect. So there is a set template, and then you also as an interviewer over a period of time, you understand because you're going to ask like the same kind of subset of questions and you'll understand. So there'll be multiple rounds with multiple people, and then what happens is then you'll have like a room or a meeting where you provide feedback, you discuss feedback, then eventually you make a decision of a hire or a no hire depending on the scores of every round. So that is your typical process that happens in a big company, right? In a startup, and this is okay, and this is, I mean, of course, I have my own opinions on the interview process and how it's become very template oriented, but I can't think of a better interview process, and this gives you a very broad general kind of engineer setup, and they can work across multiple teams. The mobility within the company is fine. If you want to switch teams, you don't have to re-interview because the interview is kind of same for every person. They've cleared. So this is good. But in a startup, especially under 20, like how we are looking for way more specific roles, right? Like, I mean, I cannot hire a generalist and ramp them up because that's too costly for me. So we are specifically looking for, people with skills that specific skills, right? Like if I'm looking for React.js or React Native. Now for us, it's not like a lot of people are applying for jobs because, like I said, I'm not a big company. I don't have a big brand. So we have to go look for the right talent and then approach them, not poach them, let's say approach them, right? So what is a good way, right? Like one way is assignment. But then assignment is a waste of time for the candidate if eventually the expectations and what they're looking for doesn't match, even though they did the assignment. So what we did is we first have an exploratory 15-minute call with people who we have shortlisted. And again, the shortlisting is we have a bot that looks at recent like GitHub kind of commits. What I believe is somebody who's passionate in programming always has a very busy GitHub commit history. So they keep doing either hobby projects or they do something on their own, and then they are very passionate about just writing code, checking in code, writing in. So that gives me that aspect of say, okay, this person is very comfortable writing code. Doesn't matter what language, what you're trying to solve, but just that you have your own interest to say, okay, I'm going to pick a Netflix clone or build something, and I'm going to build that, right? So I look at and I value GitHub commit history or commit activity a lot. So that's where we first do the filtering, right? And I really don't care about what college you came from, what is your GPA, nothing. And I really don't care which semester. I really don't care about any of this, as long as you're actively coding, and then we do a technical round, depending on if they like our vision, if they want to come up. Then we do the technical round, and in the technical round, we give them an assignment. The assignment also has a lot of Easter eggs in it, so that it's, we want them to go figure out, right? Because with programming with AI these days, if it's a simple thing, a co-pilot would solve it for me. I don't need an engineer to write code for that, right? As a programmer, you need to be capable of asking the right things to the bot so that it can give you the answer. So our assignment is kind of structured in a way that we already know if you throw this into ChatGPT, it will give you the standard answer, and we'll validate that you didn't do anything. It was just copied from there. So there are specific places that you as a human need to think and make decisions. And when you come to the interview, we ask you to open up that assignment, talk through, and then every place where you have these decision making kind of places, we drill the candidate to say, why did you make that choice? Right? Like all three are right answers. I actually have no problem with that. But as long as you can justify your right answer, I'm very happy. Right? And I don't believe in lead code puzzles or whatnot and all of these. Okay, solve this subsequence, whatever problem in 20 minutes. No, I mean, that just gives me very cookie cutter kind of engineers. I want to work with engineers who put a lot of thought in building something, and they have a lot of finesse in what they do, rather than I practice this problem 5 times. Now I'm able to solve this, and it's not like that's not how your real job will be.
Right.
So the interview is very much like how your real job would be. I would give you an assignment, and then you tell me why you wrote code in a certain way. Even if you have used the tools like ChatGPT, Copilot, I'm totally fine with that. In fact, I like engineers who kind of leverage the tools that they have and then make their lives easier, as long as they understand what was suggested and how that will fit into the problem, rather than just copy pasting. You need to know whatever I'm copy pasting is also the right thing.
Correct.
So yeah, that's our interview process. And so far, we've gotten a good team.
Yeah.
You must know, you work with them every day.
So now, since this is how you hire, let's go back in the memory lane.
Yeah.
What was your experience when you were getting hired?
Oh, when I was getting...
Because how was the experience in the hiring process of Amazon and LinkedIn?
So Amazon, I joined out of college, like in University of Florida. AWS came to our campus, and there was like a day-long kind of hiring, whatever they call it, hiring event or something. There were 4 rounds, and again 4 rooms, each person asking a different question, and there was a whiteboard. We need to solve the programming problem there. And then 1 round of design question, and then the last round of culture fit. And I think that was pretty straightforward, because I was just out of college. Probably the expectation out of me was also not too much. I didn't feel that, I did that interview like blow out. But LinkedIn was very different, because I was getting there like 2-3 years after I already worked. So the expectation was definitely much higher. They were looking for even minor things in terms of error handling and, have you looked at all the corner cases? Does your code compile? Does it write? Can you think of optimizing it? All of that. So that was more like 7 rounds, if I remember. This was 2016, 2015, right? So this was more of a 7-round thing. First round was on phone. It was a phone screen, 1 hour phone screen, 2 programming questions. There'll be like a interactive code editor where the interviewer is going to look at the code, and I type in, and then they can compile, they can run it. Once you clear that, you come on site. On site, it's a full day interview process. There will be like 1 round which is more around communication skills. So there they expect you to talk about a past problem and explain it, assuming the interviewer is a new hire. So let's say you're the interviewer. What you're asked to is like, assume that I'm a new hire coming into my team. Explain to me this project, and I'm totally fine taking any project. They're looking at your articulating skills and kind of how well you've understood things, and can you have a good technical conversation with a teammate. I think that's what they're looking at in that round. I think fairly straightforward. If you've worked in any other company, it shouldn't be a problem. Then there's the design round. The design round is more of system design, where they ask you to draw block diagrams, and then how data flows from one place to another. What subsystem choices you make, how do you write the API, I think that's also the complexity of that round goes up as you interview for more senior positions, where they expect the design to be solid. But at early 3-4 year, I think it's okay to not be perfect there, because they understand that whatever you are explaining there is not from your real life kind of work experiences. It's more around your whatever you've learned from reading a blog or somewhere. So that's okay. Then there are 2 to 3 coding rounds depending on the role. Again, the coding rounds, each round is 1 hour. We are expected to solve 2 coding problems across like data structures, algorithms, and all of that. Very similar to the questions that was in the phone screen, but no laptop or anything there. You just write the code on whiteboard, and then you explain to the interviewer why you wrote code in a certain way. Then there will be, once you're through with all of this, and then there will also be like a manager kind of role. There it's again a culture fit. Can you like decision making kind of questions? Yeah, so that's and this is LinkedIn, but every company has a different. I mean, I've interviewed with Walmart, Netflix, had offers from both of them. Very different kind of questions. I think Netflix was very, very kind of not so picky on syntax errors or let's say error cases, edge cases. A close enough working code with pseudocode they were happy with, but very, very picky on culture, right? So the recruiter had even given me a 21 slide culture deck to say, read this is our culture deck, and make sure you give the best out of you. I mean, it was not so much like give your answers to fit the culture. That would be flawed anyway. It's mostly around, this is what we care for. When you're answering, make sure that you represent yourself in the best way so that this is shown, right? So their emphasis is a lot on the culture. Because they feel that hiring somebody with bad culture is worse than a bad engineer.
Okay.
Right?
What's your opinion on it?
I think it makes sense, but it's very hard to kind of hold that culture through for years and all of that. I mean, they have their reasons for it. I don't know. It's working for them. Yeah. So that was Netflix. And Walmart. Walmart was very different in that they looked at your aptitude kind of things, like critical thinking. They emphasize more on those skills rather than pure programming skills. So each company has a different thing they look for. I would say if you're targeting a certain company, look into what they look for. Don't just solve 500 lead code questions and go for an interview, because that's not what the company might be looking for. Yeah.
And how was your experience and days in LinkedIn and Amazon? Like, how was like a day in Pradhan's life, if we have to discuss?
Amazon just is a very frugal company, right? Like there is no free lunch, there is no gym, there is I mean, all we had was coffee. That too, coffee as in like black coffee, and bananas. Right. That's just what the cafeteria had, and then water, of course. And then there's a vending machine, right? So whatever you want, you can go buy it yourself. There is no concept of a standing desk. You have all these fancy desks, right, that go up and down.
Yeah.
No, it's just a simple door. You have this wood that's there for door, right? They put 4 legs on that, and they call it door desks. Right?
Okay.
So because the culture is very much on giving the best value for money for your customer. They're into price competitive pricing, right, for customers, right? So that they want to spread that same culture across the board in every spending, and engineering, R&D, whatever spending comes in. Be frugal was the culture. So yeah, I would usually start my day at around. I was staying in Redmond. Redmond is close to Seattle. I took a bus to downtown Seattle. Then I would leave home at around say 9:30. I would be in office. Start my day. Just grab some coffee or some breakfast and start my day. Usually like around 11 or so, there'll be like a team meeting, then again, some other meetings, any other meetings we have, would always be in the mornings. I think we always had this thing of let's keep all the mornings for meetings, and then have your work time like more around the afternoon. Then just lunch, and then after that is mostly like some solid 5-6 hours of focused work. I would say post lunch, like around 1 p.m. to say 6-7 p.m. 6. I mean, I would be out of office at 6. Would be my really like focus work. Very. I was in a team which built.
Just a sec.
So my team was we were building something like Google Docs, but for Amazon. A small team, 30 people team, fun team. It was more like a startup within a big company. So that's actually the ideal place, by the way, if you have that, because you have the big daddy funding, the money for.
You're also getting the experience.
Yes, and also you get the experience of this small team working together. So we built something, launched something in 2-3 years. I was the first engineer in that team. Wrote the first line of code, built it, launched it. We had beta customers, paid customers, and I was done like 3 years. I thought I would need a change. LinkedIn's very, very different. So I think LinkedIn's your true kind of valley kind of company where you're talking about Google, Meta, and these guys, right? So you have a gym, you have a full-fledged buffet for breakfast, lunch, dinner. Then you have bikes to go around within the campus. You have a vending machine which vents out without paying money. Like you have your ID card. Let's say you need a charger, right? You put in your ID card, and then the expectation is you are again a grown-up adult. You are responsible, and it's not free stuff. It's costing the company. And you belong to the company. Right? That's just the use wisely. Like use like it's your own business or home, right? Like what? And then the culture is very less. I mean, it's kind of less. I would say stressful. LinkedIn definitely. Coming from Amazon, you're expected to do everything yourself. You're the developer. You're the tester. You are the SRE who deploys code and all of that. But at LinkedIn, they had different kind of teams, organizations, and you focus on your thing, and then something else will be taken care of, someone else. And then you have a shutdown for July 4th week, for the Independence Week, 1 full week off. And July 4th, then there's 1 full week off for Christmas. And then every 4th Friday used to be like this day called In Day. In everything, they named it as In for LinkedIn. So this is where you get to choose what you want to build. Don't work on your sprint tasks. Work on something that you're passionate about. Go get a haircut or a hike, or spend time with whatever makes you feel you should be prioritizing. I remember people would go on hikes. They would build hobby projects.
What did you do?
I probably just went on bike rides. I mean, I like biking, or I would hike. I always got my haircut appointment on that day because weekends would be difficult to get. Then that's it. I mean, spend time with family. It's not really a holiday per se. You do things that you do for yourself, right? A holiday is more like you don't do anything, I guess.
Correct.
So it's more like
Productive holiday.
Productive holiday. And then I've also done coding on those days, but then it's so much more around like tools that I always wanted to build, but I never had the time, right? And automating, and I just wanted to automate a task, right? Which probably is, let's say there's an error, somebody needs to go search in the logs what happened, and then they need to match it with the exact time that happened on the metrics. You correlate whatnot. These are things that can be automated with a lot of kind of duct tape and stitching together a bunch of scripts. I enjoyed doing those, and then I would share it with the team. And then next time when somebody gets into this issue, of course, it's not production quality script. Something like you can make your life better. So I would do those kind of simple hobby kind of scripts that would just help people or me do things better.
Yeah.
That would be my in day. We had 4 or 5 cafes. You can pick whichever you want. You can get unlimited number of guests.
Wow.
Yeah, so when my parents visited me in the US, I got them. We had food together. Then there's a game room. A lot of fun. I mean, LinkedIn was like heaven after Amazon, because there I had to pay for the vending machine as well.
Yeah.
And here is like, crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah, you feel like the company's kind of taking care of you very, very well, and you need to do the right thing for the company. So you get that feeling you really get that feeling of okay, yeah. So yeah, that was how it was.
Now, one question that I had once you said we were talking about these work culture and stuff. What do you do when you get blockers? Like, how do you move past that phase?
You mean as an engineer, what I would do, like back in the day when I would
As
get stuck?
or as a person, like, what's you?
See, I think you spend a fair amount of time debugging, researching. This is mostly for programmers, right? Like you do spend a good half a day at least to figure it out yourself, right? Then you need to think about whether the problem is I've seen engineers just go into this thing of for days together. They just try to figure it out themselves, right? You need to strike a balance here, because whatever you're trying to solve might not even be important in the larger scheme of things, which you may not know, because you are very much focused on whatever information you're working off of, what you know, right? So that is when you reach out to your lead or your manager and say, hey, I have tried these things, still not working out. I either need help with somebody who's more expert in the team, or we need to reprioritize and figure out if this is important or not. Now, one of two things might come out. So one is if it's a must-have for a business, right? Like let's say you're solving something non-negotiable, this has to be done. Otherwise, it's a showstopper for the business. Then there is no choice, right? Like then what the manager would probably do is put more people, use the manager's network to say, there is this other person in the other team who's an expert in this kind of topic. Maybe set up time with them, or talk to her, or maybe another engineer in the team. She's been doing this for a while. Just sit together with her, get help. That's one way a manager can support. Usually, good managers do that, right? And it's because the manager also understands that it's wasted time and resource if the engineer is not able to solve that. Or the other thing is the manager or the higher up or the product folks tell you that, okay, but this can be parted for later. Let's push it for later because there are more important things where your time can be spent. So it's important for engineers to know these two options.
Correct.
Right? But in both options, before talking to your manager, spend a good amount of time and tell them what all you have tried. Otherwise, the manager or the lead wouldn't trust you.
Correct.
You say, then as a lead, I really don't want to tell you that, have you tried this? Have you tried this? I want you to already have tried basic things before, coming and asking me, right? Like, have you done a simple Google search to say how to solve this? Or have you asked ChatGPT how to solve this? Sometimes people wouldn't have even done that. They're just like, okay, I don't know, what next?
First option.
Yeah, so that you need to first figure out to solve it yourself. If it's going beyond your time, then check whether it's even important or if you can get help.
Correct. Now we are heading towards the end of the podcast.
Okay.
And I have these two questions which I basically ask all the time to every person.
Yeah.
So firstly, if you have to list down any 3 lessons that you learned throughout your whole journey, what would those be?
Like life lessons, like
Any lesson.
I would say, let me think. So this one's like more life lesson as well as your like, whatever when you work and stuff is, see, nobody knows everything, and never kind of doubt your own ability to say, hey, okay, the person around, like people around me are like such, like they're so great. Will I be able to catch up with them? Will I be able to perform at this level? What is expected out of me? Yes, you always have that confidence in you, because you might be good at something else that some other person might not be. And then, in fact, there's a good thing that you get to learn that. And then you just became better than what you were yesterday. Right? So just compare yourself with yourself. I think just compare with yourself and see if you've become a better person than yesterday, both as an individual or I would say engineer, technically, whatnot. That takes away that fear. It gives you a lot of confidence. I think that would be my first lesson that I've learned, and I use it all the time. And it's okay if you don't know something. It's okay. I mean, so what? I mean, it's not like end of the world. There's something
Correct.
else. That is one. Other thing is, always keep learning. Like I said, this was learning from people around you. Never stop learning. Read a lot. Anything. Read anything. I mean, I read a lot of non-fiction. I don't read fiction, but read a lot. It just keeps you sharp. It just keeps you kind of feel very good about. And the last one is focus on your health.
Focus on your health.
Like how Anusha does, rather than not. Spend at least an hour exercising. I've been trying to do that. So nothing beats health. Turn off all notifications or any distraction. Block your calendar for a 1 hour.
For 1 hour.
Physical activity, whatever that entails. It might be running. It might be say a gym or a hike. And do that first thing in the morning, because that's the most important thing.
Correct.
So do that as the first thing in the morning. Then you already feel you're accomplished your goal for the day. Then you're so excited and energetic for the rest of your day.
Correct.
Yeah. Best thing.
And the last question of the episode is, what do you think, Pradhan, is the yellow in you? What do you think is something that makes you different? Like the color yellow makes you stand out, like the color yellow.
Interesting.
You can think about it.
I think I kind of think ahead and kind of go deep into analysis of everything and then make a decision. I just can't operate without kind of having a clear path, or at least thought through the clear path. I think that's probably me being a Virgo. That's just my trait. But it's gone a long way for me. I mean, that's helped even at my work. I just feel comfortable in places because I have already thought through X, Y, Z, everything, and then I have that. But then I also have I'm comfortable handling an unknown situation also. It's not like if you give me C, I don't know, I got something that I don't know. But I think this is more like my upbringing, where my dad is complete opposite. I mean, he's operated in like almost like let's figure it out kind of mindset.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable figuring out also. But having these two kind of probably I would say sets me apart. I mean, a lot of people have this, but I do better than most people.
Because I have seen this. Like, this is one thing that I really noticed in you was that whenever I used to come up with these designs, which are just like, okay, how will we sort of execute them?
Yeah.
I've always heard this one sentence from you, even when one of our fellow engineers, they say, okay, this might not be possible. And you would be like, but we have to make it possible. So let's think how we can do it, because we have to.
Yeah.
So that's something that
Yeah,
there.
I mean, that's there too, right? Because if not, then I mean, like I said, like suboptimal products already exist.
Correct.
Right? We need to build something that's better than what already exists.
Correct.
To make that, you have to bring the boundaries and you have to figure it out. We can figure it out. I mean, that's nothing's impossible.
Yeah.
You just need to either build it or find it. That's all it is.
For sure.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Pradhan. And it was lovely chatting with you. And I think you've come a long way in life for sure. Like, this has been a very long journey from where you started. And I'm sure the audience would, learn a lot from this, like genuinely a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having this, taking the time to kind of do all the research and asking me.
It was very fun. I enjoyed it, and all the best for the podcast. And yeah.
Thank you.